Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the regular city council meeting for Monday, May 4th. We will begin with roll call.
Blessum.
Here.
Fuller. Here. Hayes. Here. Janser.
Here.
Olson. Here. Pittner.
Here.
Samuelson.
Here.
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Continuing on with the mayor's report, well, you can obviously see I'm not the mayor, but the mayor is online. Mark, do you have a report that you want to give an update at this point?
No, not particularly. I think we'll just go ahead with the other parts of the mayor's report, and that'll suffice for tonight. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, we'll continue on. We do have a couple proclamations tonight. We're going to start with the first, which is that the mayor has proclaimed May 8th as Provider Appreciation Day. So whereas the child care system supports children's growth, development, and educational advancement and creates a positive impact for families and communities, and whereas child care providers are essential to the health of our communities by fostering welcoming spaces, supporting working families, and creating educational, enriching environments where children can develop lifelong skills, and whereas community support for affordable, accessible, high-quality childcare represents a worthy commitment to help families work, supports children's healthy development and learning, and keeps our economy growing. Now, therefore, do I, Mark Janser, Mayor of Minot, North Dakota, hereby proclaim May 8th, 2026 as Provider Appreciation Day and urge all Minot residents to support child care providers for the vital role they play in our communities and to recognize that child care continues to be a lifeline for Minot families, our collective community, and our overall economy. So Alderwoman Olson and Alderman Samuelson, if we've got providers here, you could do a picture. Or?
Do we have any providers in the audience tonight? Yes. Would you come forward and we'll take a picture?
Okay, our second proclamation, the mayor proclaims May as Building Safety Month. Whereas the city of Minot is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depend on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by ICC to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local, state, tribal, territorial, and federal building safety and fire prevention departments in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, do I, Mark Janser, Mayor of the City of Minot, hereby proclaim May as Building Safety Month and encourage residents to recognize and appreciate the dedicated building professionals who create and implement the highest quality codes and standards to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. So we got this. So we've got that there, Brian. You can grab that for your team. Okay, moving on with the agenda. We'll continue with the mayor's report, and we'll invite Mark Lyman up. He's going to talk about Economic Development Week.
Thank you, Jennifer, for bringing up the slides, if you would. President Blessum, members of the City Council, thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time tonight. My name is Mark Lyman. I do economic development for the Minot Chamber EDC. And if you didn't know already, May 4th through the 8th is Economic Development Week. We don't often spread this one all over the news, but this is one we wanted to highlight and bring a little bit of information to you today. Our main purpose, or my main purpose today, is to cover kind of at a quick snapshot some of the things that we do. What does economic development look like in Minot, North Dakota? How we, at the Minot Chamber EDC, as the lead economic development organization, are doing some of that work. And then also invite you all, plus the public, to come to a couple of different events this week in an effort to learn more about some of the things that we do when it comes to economic development. Next slide, please. You'll see quickly our mission. We advocate and invest in business activity by being a collaborative partner in the community, and we focus on improving quality of life for all. Next slide, please. And the vision is to be the go-to organization for our business community to drive key initiatives that build and strengthen our economy. Next slide, Jennifer. A quick look at our strategic plan. For those who are familiar with what our organizations were before we joined, the old Minot Chamber of Commerce and the Minot Area Development Corporation joined now 5 years ago. You see the strategic plan, or the pillars, the 5 key pillars in front of you there. 3 of those 5, I would point out, have the word development in them. And I would even argue that our military support in many ways is economic development, being that they have nearly $1 billion annual economic impact in our community. Next slide, please. I said I'd be quick tonight. I told Mayor Janser under 5 minutes, so I'm shooting for that. I do want to read really quickly a little bit of information off of a flyer that is posted online from the International Economic Development Council. And this talks about what economic development does for a community. So this is the lead paragraph that it states. It states, a vibrant economy is the result of deliberate choices and actions. All communities need a person or an organization that wakes up every day charged with improving the health of the local economy. That's what economic developers and economic development organizations do. And I like that quick little snapshot of what is economic development, or what do we do, because every community is really very, very different. And the reason for that, from an economic development standpoint, and the reason for that is because every community's got different strengths and weaknesses. We don't live on either coast. There will be plenty of people who say that's great. It's tough for us to ship a lot of things internationally without living on either coast. So we had to come up with different ways to get our key items to market. So that's the logistics, macroeconomics that we help to solve. We don't live near a major city. Again, some people would say that's great, but it does take 8 hours by car or 2 hours by plane to get to maybe a Minneapolis or a Denver. And people like that at times. Some businesses prefer that. Other businesses don't. There's a reason why a lot of communities grow up and thrive along the interstates, because that's where truck routes are, because that's where people travel. We don't have an interstate, but we still lean into the fact that we have 3 U.S. highways here, US 2, US 52, and US Highway 83, which are very valuable for us. So I've got a list of things there. Some of them you're very familiar with. Others maybe you're not that familiar with. But hopefully this is a quick snapshot of some of the things that we do in economic development. Again, it's not comprehensive, but it's just designed to remind us all that a lot of these things are some of the things that matter a lot to our community. We lean into these things, we value these things, and we work very hard every day to make movement on these things. Next slide, please. Now, we don't do economic development in a vacuum, so while we are the lead organization in the Minot area for economic development, we want to spotlight our partners for just a second. And clearly, you guys as a collaborative partner, your name is on both the partner organization and the collaborative partner. You guys fund us, but then you guys also do economic development work. I appreciate the development review team meetings that are happening on Wednesdays, led out of Brian Billingsley's department, but attended by 4, 5, 6 different department heads every Wednesday, multiple meetings. Those are very valuable for us to attend as well. And we see a lot of good information flow that happens there. That's just one example of partner organizations that we support and ways that we are trying to be collaborative with you guys as a partner organization. Having said all that, I want to get to the last item that I would cover. If you go to the next slide, please, Jennifer. Want to make sure that everyone here is invited, as well as the public, to kind of get a feel for some of the things that we do as a Chamber EDC. Some of these are these are different committee meetings that we hold on a regular basis. We held a committee meeting a couple months ago from the Energy Committee, where we had North American Iron there. We had over 120 people attend a meeting. And we'd invite the public to come tomorrow to hear about data centers. No, don't hear what I'm not saying. There's no announcement happening tomorrow about data centers. But we know that this is a conversation that people are having when it comes to what does development look like? What does economic development look like? And so we wanted to be proactive in working with the API Bakken chapter to bring in someone who is growing data centers in North Dakota. That is Applied Digital. So we'd invite people to come to the Chevron facility there off of 16th Street at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. It's an open meeting. It would be great to pack the house, have another 100 people there. So, you know, we've got an interview happening. Brecca Kramer, president and CEO of the organization, and I did an interview with the Dakotan, and that'll be airing this week on economic development. And then everyone's invited to come to our infrastructure committee meeting on Friday morning. It's held at Homesteaders starting at 7:30. You can buy breakfast if you want to. You don't have to buy breakfast if you're there. And you can hear from Ellie DeLoyers, the Minot Park District Executive Director, on the sales tax presentation. So I don't know if I quite got to 5 minutes, but again, we want to thank you guys as collaborative partners. We couldn't do this work that we do without all these different organizations that make it possible. And we hope that you're able to find time or take time this week to think about economic development, to attend one of these meetings, or to reach out to us if you've got any questions on the work that we do. Last slide, please. And having said that, I would stand for any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions for Mr. Lyman? I don't see any, Mark. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, continuing on, we'll move into the reports section. Item 4, City Manager's Report. Tom?
Good evening, President Blessum, members of council. Number one, just apologize that my report with department heads didn't make it on the agenda, so City Clerk Michaela McWilliams will amend the agenda, so that's there. Also on the agenda, you did see that 5 of local agencies that received funding through council in the 2025 budget provided their reports. That's the first time we've provided those expenditure reports, that we required those. So appreciate any feedback you might have about those reports. And then again, and that may be helpful in the near term when community partners have their community contributions in the next few weeks as well. So with that, I'll close with, back at our joint meeting with the council and the county commission met back in January. One of the taskers that came out of that meeting was to look at future potential locations for our municipal court. You know, we've been operating for a number of years now out of the auditorium. There's some issues with that. On our report, there were some security issues that were identified earlier this year that I appreciate staff bringing those to my attention. So we worked diligently, led by Captain Justin Sunheim and the police department, with Nikki Tallman and Judge Beal, and the sheriff's office participated as well, to mitigate those as best as possible. So that work has been done. Obviously, we want a secure, safe location for all that come into the municipal court. But then I also asked Ryan Kamrowski to kind of lead a staff integrated process team to get everybody's opinion and just do an objective analysis of other locations. So I'm asked Ryan to present that now. And the next time that we meet with the commissioners, county commissioners, we can address this with them as well. So unless there's any immediate questions for me now, I'll just go ahead and yield to Ryan Kamrowski. Ryan.
Thank you, City Manager Joyce. President Blessing, members of the council. As City Manager Joyce mentioned, back in January, we had our last joint meeting with County Commission, and the directive to staff was to look at possible cooperations or collaborations with the county, and then or current locations for our municipal courts within the city of Minot. I'm going to preempt, this is just an internal review, no outside review has been done with Ward County on this. We felt that first we need to get our eggs in a basket in line, determine what recourses and analysis and what choices we have as a city of Minot. And if there's any of these that kind of stick out, as I mentioned in the memo, that's something for discussion that as a joint board at our next meeting, maybe strive some conversation between those individuals. The first thing, as mentioned, there was a summary. We met as a working group that include City Manager Joyce, Judge Beal, Nikki Talman, Stephanie Solheim, Lance Meyer, Justin Sunheim, Tyler Rule, and Sean Wagner from PD. We got together and started identifying potential locations within current city operations and Ward County operations that could be utilized for use of municipal courts. Those locations are identified on the larger screen and then within the decision matrix. At the end of the day, the decision matrix it's scored and weighted by those individuals within the team using an objective analysis. That's where I came in. I have no ties to municipal court. My job as an assessor is to be objective in my opinion, and so that's where my trades and skills came in place. Looking at the items in the decision matrix, we then we have the criteria that were met for consideration: cost, time, space, and functionality, which is one of our top priorities. Accessibility, another top priority. Location, convenience, operational disruption, safety and security, a top priority, and then parking and transit and long-term value for any of these locations. After determining where we were looking at and then the grading criteria that would be assigned to those, Jen, if you go on the next slide for the blue screens, we then started weighing those individual scores. We looked at using a multiplier based off the location, which one was the top location, bottom location, and then weighting that decision matrix. As you can see outlined within the decision matrix and then on the screen, there's a handful of different locations picked, and then the highs and lows. Jen's been gracious enough to provide this for a quick oversight on the properties in question. Those properties in questions, as we mentioned, we're looking at Ward County Courthouse, potential police department remodel. We have the Renaissance parking ramp, Ward County Administration Building, a couple floors there. The current location, of course, we want to analyze the current location too. And then City Hall, a couple options here at City Hall. After that dive, we wanted to also make sure that what we provided you as a council fell in line with how other jurisdictions are operating within the state. And you can see vast majority of operations within the state are either co-located with their district court or they do have their own standalone locations. As you can see, Bismarck, Jamestown, Mandan, Wilson are all co-located within their district courts throughout the state. Dickinson's within their city hall. Fargo has their own standalone building, and then Minot, we have our own Fargo has their own standalone. Grand Forks is combined with their corrections facility, and then Minot, we have our own standalone facility over at the auditorium. Wanted to make sure we covered the concerns that were outlined in Captain Sunheim's report. From my understanding, most of those immediate and short-term concerns have been addressed, but the long-term concerns are the functionality that we're looking at here and available options we want to provide to you as a council. And we believe that of these items that are presented here, it's pretty clear when we look at the weighted criteria, accessibility to public safety aspect, where we could go in this process, but we also have to be fiscally responsible in our decision here as a board. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have about the information.
Any questions for Ryan? Yeah, Alderman Olson.
Thank you. And I don't know if it's necessarily a question for Ryan or maybe City Manager Joyce. What expectation do you have out of us tonight? Are you looking for direction? Are you looking to just more present this to us and then the discussion would happen at the next joint meeting of the council and the commission, or kind of what are next steps?
President Blessum, Alderwoman Olson. So the next step, initially, if you had, based on this list, if there was something else that jumps out at you that we just missed and then we did not conduct an objective analysis on, or we may have ruled out early on, just bring it up and we can answer that. But other than that, it's really just meant to be our first presentation to you, informational. It's our objective analysis. As Ryan mentioned, this is internal. doesn't have all of the subjective pieces and parts that could come into play when we talk to others that may be working in some of these locations or that kind of thing. But just as we went through and developed a decision matrix and developed the weighting of that as an integrated team, this is the results. So, I think this was, our best shot of what's available like locally now, and just to inform you, and then as we go and talk as a joint meeting with city council and county commissioners, there may be more discussion. And at certain point, I mean, this is obviously whoever our external partners are on whatever courses of action we determine to further analyze. For example, it may be, hey, let's go with these three and here's why. Then we'll dig deeper into maybe the top 3 locations, which may or may not be what are ranked. Like this is just our presentation on the objective analysis. But if there could be some other information that comes into play that changes the ranking a bit or what have you, then we'll move forward. But I think what I learned the most from this, I'll just share, is that we have a lot of priorities and we can't fund everything, and we know that. But it's all about racking and stacking priorities, and this is an important priority that maybe over the years, may have gotten lost a little bit, or hey, they're doing well enough, it works well over there. But just from, as Captain Sunheim pointed out, just from a security and safety measure, it's not ideal. And we just need to know that. But at least I think we work diligently to get after the most immediate concerns and the short-term concerns. But the other mid to long-term concerns, they're not going to go away without more than likely changing the location or putting some significant resources into the current location to make some changes to just the whole layout of the facility itself.
All right. I appreciate the answer, and if I can just follow up quickly, as you've noted, this has been a concern for a number of years, and so I'm glad that we're looking at it again. I'm glad that we're gathering more information. I look forward to hearing from others as far as their feedback and their perspective on this. But I think most importantly, we do have to realize that it is just information receiving tonight. In the past, sometimes there's been some misunderstandings that when we discuss something that we're making that decision for everyone, and we're not tonight. We're just getting the feedback, so thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, Ryan, for me, a couple things. So in the listing, and I've got the colorful grid up just for your reference. When I look on the right-hand side and you looked at some of the statewide locations, did you get enough information there? So we've got 4 of the 7 that are labeled as co-located with district courthouse. Now, in those cases, are they using the same courtrooms? Do they have their own courtroom? Is it a different part of the same building? Can you give us a little more detail if you have it?
President Blessum, members of council, I don't have the specific details on each of those. These were the locations that were addressed for the properties themselves into it, and the physical locations are within the secure perimeter, or within the secure perimeter of their district courts. So we're talking about location security-wise, they're operating within there. Whether or not they have their own courtroom times, own courtrooms, if the council's like, I can definitely get that information for you.
Okay. And I know we have Judge Beal here tonight. Ashley, I don't know if you have any more information on that you could give us on what those might look like in the other locations, if you have that off the top of your head?
The council. So I know specifically in Williston, and actually Attorney Stahlheim may have additional information about this as well, but in Williston, City Court is within the district court, but it's like a separate office suite where they conduct court. So they don't actually have shared courtroom space with the district court. And I don't know, Attorney Stahlheim, if...
Judge Beal, President Blessum, I don't know off the top of my head where I haven't visited any of these municipal courts per se, but I would have contact information for their city attorneys, and so I could easily find that information out for you.
Okay. And the reason that this comes to my mind, after we toured your facility and then the discussions that we've had since, to me, there seems to be a pretty strong reason to co-locate with the district court. In our case in particular, because the jail is so close by. There's just a lot of logistical things that help, but I don't know that that necessarily has to mean in an existing courtroom. Within the building might make sense. Certainly within the secure side could be helpful, I think. But I guess that's where my mind goes with the options that we're seeing right now. And certainly the council can continue to discuss here, but that's really where my mind goes. And do you have anything to add to that? Is there any tidbits you'd want us to hear from you directly?
Thank you, President Blessum. So obviously, it's the most appealing to us for a myriad of reasons. It's very cost effective. You have security there. There's no need to transport prisoners via a vehicle. They can walk right over and not have to go outside in the elements and get dressed. And it just frees up resources. The PD right now has 2 officers and more than that if they have, male and female prisoners that they're transporting. And so it just ties them up a lot for much of the morning. And so to the extent that we would be able to go over there, to my knowledge, and in my experience, it's very unusual that all of the courtrooms in the courthouse are being utilized at a given time. In the unlikely event that would happen, we at Municipal Court do have the flexibility of scheduling to be able to say, well, we won't have court, we won't hold court these days, that if it's problematic for the district court. Obviously, there's a whole larger side of this conversation that's not present here tonight, and they have totally different feedback than I do, but just from a fiscal perspective and a security perspective, to City Manager Joyce's point about security, the PD has been wonderful to work with, and they have worked so hard to make the changes that we can to address security concerns in our current location. However, one of the major sort of problems with that was this location of this gate in the municipal auditorium that ultimately we could not move. And so the changes that we did make were sort of like thwarted by the fact that we couldn't move this gate to be able to have access to an alternative exit in the event that there would be an emergency. So, that concern still weighs really heavily on me and on court staff. And so, yeah, that would be the only other feedback I would have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, other questions for Judge Beal? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Council, Ryan, you have something to add? Sure.
Alderman Blessum, I do back to you guys. I'll get that information for you, the breakdown, and I'll provide that in an email to the council as we move forward.
Okay,
for the breakdown
thank you.
reports.
Yeah. So Council, any direction that we want to give tonight? Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. Well, I guess we start the conversation with the county and with the district judges, because that's kind of where conversations fell apart the last time. So I think that there needs to be representation from the county commission as well as the district court.
Yeah, I would agree. That's really where my mind goes, is that this is great sort of pre-work that's been done, Tom, and I think that's the right direction. But I think really the conversation starts once we start working with our counterparts over there. And so I guess any thoughts from the council? We've got a couple different things moving right now. We've got the library discussion going on. We've got some different pieces. We can line that all up so we have another joint meeting. I mean, that's one possibility that's going to be on the horizon. But I hate to lose a little bit of time here. And if there are discussions, Tom, that, with counterparts on the county side to weigh what the actual options are over there, because really that's where my mind goes. I see the others, I see the parking ramp, I see there's other ways that we can do it. But if we're literally just saying, hey, what site in the entire city are we willing to spend money to build out? We got a ton to look at, right? I think there's a particular advantage to taking a look at the county space. And I guess my thought would be I would entertain a motion to direct staff to begin that conversation with our counterparts if there's a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so Paul and Alderman Fuller. So continue discussion on that then. I guess, again, I would just like to see I'd like to see our staff to start that conversation more directly about what the options would look like over there. Okay, go ahead.
Just one comment related to that, and I know I brought this up when we're talking about alcohol ordinances as well. I think that there's been a lot of work put in by this current council, and if there are some things that we can kind of get tied up before the reorganization meeting 1st of July, I think that would be it would be preferential to me. And I just feel that it's, in all fairness, to have new candidates come up and not necessarily have all of the background. I think it would be better if we could make some decisions if it works.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's why it's important to not lose time right now. So any further discussion?
Mayor Janser has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Just to let you all know, and I don't know that we've got a date pinned down yet, but to the point that's being made, I have contacted Chairman Feldall, and we are trying to come up with a date to meet at least once in the month of May. So that effort is underway.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Okay, anything further? Okay, please record your votes.
The motion passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then, before we move on from your report, Tom, I did just want to mention one thing related to the financial reports. I think they were great. I think it's a great first step and exactly what I was looking for out of that. And I guess I would encourage the council as well as the candidates that are here with us that are looking at being on the council to now use that information for the decisions that we need to make. You know, in a tight budget environment, every dollar that we're spending, we have to take a look at. And this gives us a pretty good picture of how those dollars are being spent, how they're being spent to better the community and to move things forward. And you know, all these things are always on the table budget-wise. So I think it's a great first step, and kudos to the teams that put those together. We appreciate it. Okay, so moving on to the city attorney's report.
President Blessum and members of the council, I submitted a written report and I can stand for any questions.
Any questions for the city attorney? Seeing none, thank you. We will move on. All right, we'll move on to item number 5, which is the report of the Planning Commission. Our first item under that is a public hearing on case number 2016-19, Northridge Villas Second Edition Zoning Map Amendment. So a public hearing is now open for this case. If there's anybody who would like to speak to this case, they should come forward now. Last call. Seeing none, council, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and approve as presented.
Motion by Alderman Fuller, second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Moving on to item 6, which is our consent agenda. We have been asked to pull 2 items for further discussion, and we were asked to pull item 6.17 by staff to be removed from the agenda and perhaps taken up at a future point. So the 2 items that are going to be pulled to be discussed separately are item 6.14 and item 6.20. Council, are there any additional items that anybody needs to have pulled tonight? Anyone in the crowd that would like to see something pulled? Seeing none, council, what are your wishes?
Move approval on the remaining items.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Alderman Pittner, second by Alderwoman Olson. Discussion. Seeing none, record your votes.
The motion passed unanimously.
Okay, we will come back now to item 6.14. Alderman Hayes, I think you had asked for this one.
I would like to ask the council's permission to abstain from the vote where I'm an owner of the company.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect? Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Alderman Pittner, second by Alderwoman Olson. Any discussion on that item? Please record your votes.
The motion passed unanimously, 6-0, with Alderman Hayes abstaining.
Okay, thank you. So Alderman Hayes, you will be excused from voting for this item. So now we'll take up the item 6.14, which is a case 2016-14 for Stonebridge Farms. What are your wishes?
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Pittner.
Second.
second by Alderman Fuller. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
The motion passed 6-0 with Alderman Hayes abstaining.
Okay, moving on to item 6.20. This is an item pavement management plan agreement. I believe Alderman Fuller, you'd asked to have this pulled.
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve so we can discuss.
Okay. Okay, motion by Alderman Fuller, second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion.
So I guess I asked for this to be pulled, and Lance, I don't know if you want to come up and talk. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So we're talking about spending $107,000. $60,000 of it, I know we're saying comes from the city portion, but the rest of it comes from the street maintenance account anyway, which is, we're using all city funds here. So when was the last time this was done? Was it 3 years ago?
Mr. President, Alderman Fuller, one quick thing before I answer your question.
Okay.
I made a mistake in the memo. The total contract value is actually $167,000. The MPO's cost is $107,000 and our cost is $60,000. So
Okay.
I forgot to add those two numbers together. But
Fair enough.
just for clarity, we do this on about a 4-year basis
Okay.
typically. And this is our first opportunity to partner with the MPO on it. Before, we would have to do all of these pavement data collections with our own costs, and now we're able to utilize federal funds for the federal aid roads. So your arterials, your Burdicks, your Broadways, those are all eligible for federal funds. The $60,000 will go towards local roads that we all live on that are not federally eligible. We're not able to take those federal funds for the pavement scan and apply that. So that's why we have to have that as a separate funding source.
Okay. And fair enough. I appreciate that. I guess my question is now, I thought it was only $107,000. Now it's $167,000. Is there not a better way that we can do this in the city of Minot? I mean, we're talking about, nickel and dime and saving money all the time, right? And I get it, but like, I'm thinking Jennifer could put a poll up on Facebook and say, hey, what are the worst roads in Minot right now? And the residents would tell us, what roads need to be paved and what's going on. Or, I mean, like, could we call in, say, hey, the 3 paving companies that have paved and taken care of the roads in Minot for 50 plus years, can you guys come in and tell us, what are the worst roads? Why are they bad? What do we need to do to fix them? Like, I bet if we spent $1,000 on a nice dinner for them, they'd come in and tell us exactly what we needed to do. So I guess I just question the common sense and the usefulness of this if there's not another way to do it. Like, again, Jennifer puts up a poll and they say, hey, these are the roads that need to be paved. We send somebody out to look at them. We're like, wow, I guess they were right? I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out if there's another way to attack this without spending $167,000.
Yeah, it's a great question, Mr. President, Alderman Fuller. And I think a poll is a great idea to get some good feedback from the public. What this contract does is, and I think I've explained this before, but just for a refresh and people that aren't familiar with what we're doing here is we hire these companies, and there's several across the U.S. that do this type of service, including the DOT. Unfortunately, for us, they have their own van that does this, which we can't use in situations like this. They just keep that basically on the interstates. But what this van is it's full of high-tech laser and measuring equipment, and it goes through and it scans each piece of pavement, and it documents things like where all the cracks are, density cracks, where the rutting is, how deep the rutting is, other pavement distresses. And what it does is it helps create that PCI map that we reference a lot. What it also does is it puts data points into our pavement condition model so that we can tell how fast some of these streets are deteriorating. So it may be that some streets are deteriorating faster than what they should, and the model is going to pick that up, and that may change the strategy that we use on some of those streets. So instead of maybe doing a chip seal based on some of the data that we have, we might be able to now take another data point and look at it and say, well, based on how fast the street is deteriorating, a chip seal would be a bad investment because it's not going to last the length of time that we think it's going to. And so without this high-tech data that we're getting to inform our pavement models in our software, we're likely going to make some bad decisions out there because we don't have that data to work with. So unfortunately, there's a cost to get it, but in the long run, having this data will save us this cost many, many times over.
Mr. President, if I can continue, thank you. So, okay, and I understand that, but, and I'm just gonna be straight. I know two of the guys that own the paving companies here in town, and they call me all the time and tell me what's wrong with our streets and roads and stuff like that. So I guess my question, have we thought of talking to those guys? Because we look at them as professionals, right? I mean, I know a couple of them well enough that they can go out there and point to a road and say, you paved that road 4 years ago, you got this problem with it, you got this problem, and this is why. Why wouldn't we talk to those guys, I mean, again, rather than spending the money? Can they not give us the same data? I know they don't have the tool that puts it into a useful map and everything for us, but couldn't they give us the same data?
Mr. President and Alderman Fuller, in some respects they could. And it's not like we don't talk to industry as we're designing our projects. We talk to them a lot about constructability and their opinions on some of the distresses we're seeing and if a certain treatment might be the best, even though the model might say, hey, this is what you should do. I mean, and that's part of our job as the engineering team is to go out there and then proof all this and make sure that what the model's telling us is actually accurate. And sometimes it's not the case. We have to go out there. Maybe the pavement scan will be done here this spring, but 2 years from now, when we might get to that street, the conditions might have changed even since then, and then we have to truth that to what's actually going on the ground. And we ask our paving companies all the time for advice, or how would you handle this, or hey, we have this situation. Is there anything out there that you would recommend? And they've been great help for us in the past. You're welcome.
Okay. Anything additional? Yeah, Alderman Olson.
Thank you. So this is related, but do you want to give us the 2-minute synopsis on the role of an MPO and how the financing works and how that's benefiting us and that it isn't just city dollars? Are you able to do that? I don't think Mr. Van Dyke is here tonight, but would you like to do that?
Yeah, no problem. Mr. President and Alderwoman Olson, so the MPO is created once a community or its region get to the 50,000 population mark. So that's including us and Surrey, and we asked Burlington to be a part of our MPO because they're so close to us and they're related. Basically what the MPO does is it helps communities master plan their transportation networks. And so the federal funds that come in are basically grant funds that are used to fund the MPO and its staff, and then for the MPO's members to program essentially planning studies for future transportation projects. So we just completed our metro transportation plan. It's our first one. Projects like this would fall into that category. You could use those funds for maybe aerial photography, pedestrian and bike studies. The bus study the transit study that's going on right now is funded with those MPO dollars. So really the whole goal is to try to have communities work together and plan their transportation in an efficient manner. And that's essentially what we're doing.
Thank you.
Anything further for anyone? Yeah, Scott.
Lance, just really quick, when the study or what they're doing here is, what percentage of roads in Minot is it doing? Is it doing all of them?
Mr. President, Alderman Samuelson, every road. So every road within Minot, and then our region as well.
Okay, thank you.
So Lance, if I could, my mind sort of went where Alderman Fuller's did. You've given a good explanation there. The other alternative that had kind of popped into my mind was you guys got a great team, right? You got engineers that work for you. You guys are designing our ADA ramps. You're doing all this work. Can you give us just a quick contrast? If the city wanted to do this work ourselves, if we wanted to certify a couple of your team to do all this, what does that even look like? I assume whatever vehicles they're using, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to outfit them, software, training, all the different pieces that go with it. Is that kind of the limiting factor here if we wanted you guys to be the team?
Mr. President, cost is going to be a limiting factor, and the fact that generally you're not going to need to do this every year. The unfortunate part would be is likely if we couldn't do a contract like this and we had to do it manually, there are ways to do it by hand. But the amount of area that they would cover would take one person probably over a year to catalog this in the right way, because that's all hand documented then. We wouldn't have the fidelity that you're going to have with, the methods and the equipment they use with laser counters and some of those things. It's all going to be by visual. We did something similar to this once just before the flood. We did not have a pavement management plan at all. And so we tried our best to catalog every single city street from a scale of 1 to 10. It was very crude, but it worked. And really what that did, if we didn't have that data, we would have received no FEMA dollars for flood recovery on repairing our city streets. Because we did that upfront work, we're able to get, I think it was over 14 or 15 million dollars in funding that came from FEMA to help us resurface almost all the flooded streets in Minot. So I think that just goes to show you the importance of doing this, but having a team member do it, I don't think would be cost effective.
Okay, anything further? All right, thanks, Lance.
You're welcome.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote.
The motion passed 6-1 with dissent from Alderman Fuller.
Okay, moving on to our action items. We're going to begin with item 7.1, which is a public hearing on the program year 2026 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. So this is a public hearing to hear from the public on the plan and, to let your voices be heard to the council. So the public hearing is now open for this item. Is there anyone here to speak to the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan? Seeing none, council, what are your wishes?
Make a motion to close the public hearing and approve as presented.
Motion by Alderman Fuller, second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Moving on to item 7.2. This is another public hearing. This is a public hearing on the revised citizen participation plan. So along the same lines, our programs are required to go through a citizen participation plan approval as well. So the public hearing is now open for this item. Is there anyone here to speak to the public hearing on the revised citizen participation plan? Seeing none, council, what are your wishes?
Move to close the public hearing and approve the item as presented.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Pittner, second by Alderman Samuelson. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Moving on to item 7.3, this is another public hearing. This is on the capital improvement plan. In just a moment, we're going to open up the public hearing on this item, but we're going to hear from the city engineer first.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of council. I'm just going to give a real brief overview of our capital improvement plan before the public and yourselves has a chance to communicate anything to us. You've already seen all these slides, so I'll just kind of run through them at a high level. Our overall 5-year capital improvement plan, as presented, is just over $888 million of infrastructure needs. The majority of that cost is coming from our flood control project and several large transportation projects we have planned for the engineering department. If you look at our totals by year, they obviously vary. A lot of that is driven by the phases and timing of our flood control project. In a perfect world, we try to level load that or get those to be as equal as possible, but with some of these large projects kind of driving that's difficult for us to do. Our capital improvement plan is made up of several funding sources. The majority of the funds that go into the capital improvement plan come from federal and state funds, and then also a large portion of our sales tax, which is dedicated towards flood control and other large capital projects. And then we use quite a bit of reserve funding to pay for some of the water and sewer improvements that go along with these large capital projects. Just a couple notes for summary here. As you can see in the graph, the majority of the capital improvement plan cost is in our flood control project at about 68%, which largely drives phasing and timing of a lot of our other projects. Several projects in the CRP are inserted in there for planning purposes, which may or may not be funded. Obviously, there's a huge need in capital projects over time. We're aware that all of that can't be funded within the next 5 years, but we have to show it to demonstrate that there is a need for some of these projects, and we'll have to work through the phasing and timing of those to fit our budget. And then just to keep in mind, these are the capital needs of the community. However, we do have ongoing maintenance costs for our utilities and streets that we budget every single year into our budget, and that's about 15 million or so. So with that, one more slide. We did meet as a ranking committee to try to put some priority to several of the projects that are within the capital improvement plan. That ranking has been shown to you. If we're able to fund these projects in our upcoming budget, these would be the ones that we had planned for 2027 to move forward. With that, Mr. President, I'll let you open that up for public hearing.
So before we do that, any questions for the city engineer? Yeah, Alderman Hayes.
Lance, could you tell me what the project funding, there's three big ones, then other, what does the other include?
Other is, it's kind of a catch-all category for several different funding sources. The majority of that is water and sewer reserves. So you'll notice in some of the engineering projects, say for instance on our 3rd Street reconstruction project, there's federal funds and state funds that go into a project like that, and then there's water and sewer reserve funds that are used to pay for the water and sewer replacement. So the majority of that over time is going to be your utilities, but also we have contributions from other agencies. So in the water main replacement category, we're receiving a lot of funds from the state through DWR and SRF funding that helps to pay for those projects, and that is included in the other category as well.
Is a portion of it the reserves as well in our?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, thanks, Lance.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we will open the public hearing on this item, on the capital improvement plan for the city of Minot. If anyone here would like to come forward and address the council on the CIP, please do so now.
There's one item on the CIP as I was reading through it that I have to question, and that's spending over $1 million to put a sidewalk on the north side of Rose Hill Cemetery. It's they've got in here that it's a high pedestrian area. I lived for 20 years 1 block north of the Rose Hill Cemetery. It is not a high pedestrian area. At least not, I moved away from there about 14 years ago, and I can't imagine that it has changed from the 20 years that I did live there. And that's $1 million that could go towards doing 21st Avenue or the 3rd Street Bridge or any of the other many projects that we need to do around town. And even in the summertime, I would ride my bike all around that area. Very seldom saw pedestrians, even on the north side where there is a sidewalk on the residential side of it. Even during high garage sale times, there just wasn't a lot of people. Even for, okay, so I thought, do they park there for funerals? But no, they don't. They park in the cemetery. So I don't see that that is necessary, especially not for over $1 million. Thanks.
Okay, we have a public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to come and address the council?
Good evening, Council. My only concern is the around $660 million for flood control. I am making the assumption they're trying to use future dollars, but since almost every project for flood control has been 30 to 40% over architectural estimates, I'm concerned that that 600 plus million will be 900 million or $1 billion. Because as we've seen, everything we've done for flood control has been way over budget. So it's a concern for mine and all the citizens that are paying for this. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone further? Public hearing is open for the capital improvement plan. Last call. Okay, seeing no one further, what are your wishes?
Make a motion to approve, close the public hearing and approve as presented.
Okay, motion by Alderman Fuller, second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion. Yeah, Alderwoman Olson.
City engineer mentioned this, but I think it's important to mention again. Just because something is in the CIP does not mean it necessarily will be funded. That'll be a part of the budget process. So, I mean, the words that people are saying, you know, I think everyone will take to heart, but just because it's in there doesn't mean it will necessarily get funded.
Okay. Additional discussion? One note that I'll add, and it's really along those lines, Alderwoman Olson, is that, you know, we had a discussion during our CIP discussion about the water and sewer building, and we've asked for some additional information back. And so I think it's unlikely that we would see a budget with this number in it when we get there. And really to the points from the crowd as well, you know, for me, a lot of my focus is on what we're going to approve for this year's budget. And the list that we've got there is item number 1. But seeing that big number, and Lance certainly knows it better than anyone, that nearly $1 billion already sitting in that plan, and that's just these 5 years. There's more beyond that. So there's definitely a lot of priorities and a lot of hard work that's going to have to happen from here on out. So, anything additional, Council? All right, seeing none, we'll vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Continuing on to item 7.4, this is an approval of the CDBG entitlement notice of funding opportunity recommendations for Youth Works. What are your wishes?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Fuller, second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll record your votes.
The motion passed unanimously.
Item 7.5 is a similar item, approval of a CDBG entitlement notice of funding opportunity recommendation for the Minot Commission on Aging. Thanks, Alderman Pittner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Fuller. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Moving on to item 7.6, this is our rules of order ordinance. This is our first reading on the ordinance. We've had discussions on this over the last couple months. What are your wishes? Alderman Fuller.
I'll make a motion that we approve option 2 of the recommended courses in the document.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Samuelson. Discussion.
Mr. President.
So, yeah, go ahead. Alderman
I was
Fuller.
just going to say, I'm through our discussions over these things over the last few weeks. Obviously, it presents a way for the mayor or the person, the chair sitting there, to make motions if they need to. So I think it's, the best of all worlds.
So just for my benefit, to clarify the motion, you said option 2 in the document. I think it's option B under item 3, right? But yeah, I think that's the idea that we're going for there. The rest of the options that are listed in the memo do not have alternatives. Is that right, City Attorney? That's the one alternative we had to work through.
So my recommendation in the memo, and I apologize for the formatting on this, Mr. President, members of the council, that was an issue with Civic Clerk, I think, is not copy pasting what I was inserting in here correctly. But my recommendation was to review and approve the ordinance on first reading. Alternative B is what's showing on my draft is to direct the city attorney for further amendments of the rules of order.
Okay,
Am I
so
looking at the-
in the memo, so I just want to be clear, in the memo, what we've got is items 1 and 2 are conversational, where you're giving us what has been done in the draft,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Item 3 actually contemplates a decision by the council to choose to move forward with one of the paths. And I believe that's what Alderman Fuller's motion refers to,
Okay.
which is to choose option B as we approve.
Perfect.
Okay? Okay.
Yeah, the way I was looking at it was that was the only thing we had to do in the document was to choose one of those 3 to say, hey, 1, 2, or 3, whichever one we went. But I thought 2 was the way we had discussed as a group that we kind of wanted to go, so.
Which again, in the document is letter B under item 3, correct? Okay, just so we're clear, Michaela, are you fine on the motion?
It's where it talks about the presiding officer.
Yes.
Correct.
One option allowing the mayor to make or second motions if they relinquish to the chair, which
Yeah.
I think, to Alderwoman Olson's point from before, that gives us the best opportunity. If the mayor's the right person to bring forward a motion, that's a simple way to have the president take over for one item. So, okay, any additional discussion on that portion? Oh, yep, go ahead, Mark.
So I'm in agreement with the motion that's on the floor. In addition to that, there was an option for the friendly amendment on page 9 of the draft. I'm wondering if we want to opine on that at this time as well.
So, City Attorney, help me make sure I understand where we're sitting. Right now, we've got a motion on the floor, which is to approve the ordinance as presented, and it includes the option that Alderman Fuller presented forward. So right now, as we sit, we're on a main motion, which means that we would be open to an additional amendment to the ordinance on this reading.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so Mark, your option, if you would like to adjust something, would be to bring an amendment.
So I would move that we amend to add the friendly amendment language that is an option on page 9.
So, Steph, just a point of order for my benefit. That, as presented right now, that is already included in the draft.
As presented, that's already included as a comment. So on page 9, the current draft of the ordinance reads that the city would not recognize a friendly amendment. What it would be is approval on unanimous consent. There's a comment on page 9 that proposes an alternative that states governing bodies of the city may use friendly amendments, which are suggested changes to a main motion that can be accepted without a formal vote. If someone proposes a friendly amendment, the presiding officer must ask the governing body if anyone objects. If no member objects, the amendment is then added to the main motion. If even one member objects, the amendment must be treated like any other amendment. The proposer must formally move the amendment and it must receive a second. Governing body must vote on it. So that's the alternative that I'm understanding Mayor Janser to be proposing as an amendment to the main motion here. So presently, the draft does not allow friendly amendments. Under the amendment being proposed by Mayor Janser, it would include that language that I just read in the comment.
So to my recollection, the way that it's described in the current draft is that while we're not calling it a friendly amendment, essentially the discussion that we already have where we might clarify something for one another, if the motion maker simply says, well, I'll adjust my motion to incorporate that, by unanimous consent, we can move forward with that. This is just a slightly different formalized way of doing the exact same thing. And I guess, do you have an opinion on either path?
I do not, President Blessam. In my opinion, I think the difference between the two is so slight that it's really a matter of semantics. The more important thing being that if somebody does object to either a friendly amendment or unanimous consent, it would force a formal motion on that proposed amendment.
Okay.
President Blessam?
Yes.
Given that further explanation by the city attorney, I will withdraw my amendment motion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. And I guess then I just have one other question since we're talking about on page 13 under the table. It's crossed off 12, 13, but I think we were just renumbering there, but it says amendment of the ordinances. So it shall be in order to amend an ordinance at any time before final passage. I guess my question here is as we've had these discussions, if we voted on something, right, and we shot it down, and it isn't brought back during normal reconciliation, so we're given more bites at the apple, am I reading that correctly? Because I think that should say, if we're gonna leave it in there, I have no problem. But I think that should say within the confines of regular reconciliation, or reconsideration, sorry, of regular reconsideration, shouldn't it? Because again, then we just keep giving those bites if we don't.
So President Blessam, Alderman Fuller, this is existing language that's in the current ordinance. And so that is a good discussion point, I guess, to raise with the council. Ordinances are kind of unique when it comes to rules of order in that our state law requires there to be 2 readings of ordinances, and it's not unusual for an amendment of an ordinance in between first and second reading. So I left that language here as is, but if, in order to allow flexibility is where I'm coming from with allowing that to stay, to allow the governing body to do that. So if the council thinks there's further clarification needing, I can certainly add that.
Well, I guess when I was reading it, Steph, and I'm thinking through some of the situations we've had up here over the last couple of years, my question would be, let's say we have, and you're right, normally first and second reading are almost back-to-back meetings. Mm-hmm. But what happens if we have our first and then it takes a second meeting and somebody tries to amend it and it's outside the rules of regular consideration or reconsideration and all of that? How do we address that then? Because then, as have stated before, they're just getting to bring it back again and ask us one more time, do we really want to do this way, and so on. So shouldn't we have something in there that, I get your flexibility point, but that makes that limit there and says, hey, this has already been decided at least one time, why are we talking about it again outside of reconsideration?
I mean, we could certainly require, I mean, for me, I guess, like, you have to vote on the ordinance twice. And so if there is a change that the council wants to make in between first and second reading, it would add an extra step, I guess, for that formality to take place. That so if somebody in between first and second wants to amend something there, the council could go through the added step of asking to reconsider, but at the same time, you're still considering the ordinance on second reading, so they're kind of competing steps, if you will. We could definitely look into that further, but I mean, it kind of seems just like, it seems at odds with each other, because you are moving towards a second reading, so it's second reading of the ordinance that's gonna approve it, but if you're going to move to reconsider approval of the first reading of the ordinance, it starts to get
This loop, right?
this loop,
Yeah.
circular. So then if we were looking at adding a motion to reconsider first vote of the ordinance, it could it could start to compete with each other really quickly. So if that's something that I guess I would put before the council for
with
its
that,
consideration too.
So that's a different facet than I had thought of with this, because I kind of had the same thought here with this one, just because I don't think any of us wants to relitigate first and second readings, right? We're not going to do the same amendments over and over. I think we all agree that we want to avoid that. My thought was exactly what you said. It's okay to just go, if there's one item, like an amendment that we had on the first reading, if you want to reconsider that one idea, a regular reconsideration motion make perfect sense to me, right? We decide if we want to take it up again, and then we take it up if we do. But actually, your thought, though, puts me in a different spot, because this whole idea of reconsidering the first reading vote is a whole other facet to this. And I don't know if normal reconsideration contemplates an amendment to a main motion anyway. So I don't know that there's a great answer there. So regardless, right now, we're doing something that I don't typically like, which is to work outside of a motion. So Alderman Fuller, do you have a motion that you want to present on this?
Well, I guess I would. I mean, but again, Steph, I'm going to defer to you and your help here. Like, my motion, I would think in my mind, I would say, hey, this should say within the confines of regular reconsideration. But now I just heard that reconsidering the whole first approval of the ordinance is a giant can of worms. Am I hearing that right?
It definitely makes it complex. Because the motion that you'd be reconsidering would be, I move to approve the ordinance on first reading.
Sure.
And so if you're gonna reconsider the motion to approve the ordinance on first reading,
So, and that's where,
set, I guess, what I would say, the reading of the ordinance and
And
prolong what's already a 2-meeting approval process.
right, and see, that's where I'm kind of confused, because I wasn't considering the whole ordinance, right? Just like you just said, I'm considering one facet of it that was approved last time or that was disapproved last time, that wasn't brought back for reconsideration, and now we're going to take another bite at it again. I want to know how we can stop that. That's the question I have, I guess, within this. So maybe I won't make a motion, Mike.
Okay, so for now, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
So my take on this is that there have been instances in the past where we passed an ordinance on first reading, and subsequent to that got input either from staff or more likely from the public, who said, well, wait a minute, did you consider this other little thing? And it made sense. And so before passing the second reading, we amended the motion to include, or amended the ordinance to take that into consideration. And so I think that's the flexibility that's built in here. And the reason it is because it takes two readings to pass an ordinance. And I think that you do get into kind of a convoluted problem if you start taking it beyond that and worry about undoing the passage the first time.
Alderman Samuelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I've thought about this quite a bit. We've talked about it, and my interpretation, or when I look at this, the reconsideration is for, how I look at it, a done project. In other words, we do 2 readings on this, it's done, and someone comes back and reconsiders it. I believe anything that's open, like this is the first reading, so when it comes to the second reading, it's open to whatever, even if it was brought up at the meeting before. That's how I interpret it. I interpret it, we make a final decision, then you go to reconsideration. I think that's to me, I think that's the only way it works. My 2 cents.
Alderman Olson.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and I certainly agree with Alderman Samuelson on that. And I think that the key example that we're kind of dancing around here is the budget between first and second reading. There can be, during the first reading, amendments are made that there have not been publicly noticed, and so we make decisions on first reading. And then our residents hear about that, and they they have concerns, they have questions. And so before we approve the budget on second reading, we should have the ability to make some amendments, even if they had been voted on during first reading. So I just feel like it's allowing some flexibility, it's allowing our public to be involved in the decision-making process. So I think that Alderman Samuelson is correct, that the only time that you would reconsider that is after you'd voted on second reading, and then we're looking at a change.
Yeah, go ahead, Alderman Fuller.
So just as a counter to that, last year when we went through the budget, we approved something, right? And then it was brought back, or we had voted to use money in a specific way, right? And then it was brought back and it was shot down, and then it was brought back again to talk about. And that's what I'm trying to get at, where we've made a decision. Granted, I hear from the public, I know we all hear from the public. But when we make a decision and then we just keep rehashing it because somebody didn't get what they wanted, how do we stop that? That's what I'm trying to get at. It isn't about trying to undo an ordinance or anything like that.
Right, and I would tend to agree. The main thing is that once we make a decision, and the budget ordinance is probably the easiest one to think through, when we make a decision in that first meeting, we make subsequent decisions on other dollar things that rely on that discussion. And that's why I'm not in disagreement. I think where my mind is going here is that we probably need to leave this as is. At the same time, we almost have to have an agreement among us to a certain extent that says, look, we can't rehash everything twice. I think we all would agree that that's not the intent of what's going on here. And the other part of that is that to a certain extent, our word needs to be our word. That's the other thing, is that we either, and really all that this is contemplating is a very orderly fashion to rehash it. What this is saying is, instead of just making a new motion that undoes the one at the first reading, it simply says, first, I'd like to reconsider that decision, and then have the vote if everybody votes to reconsider. So you have a two-phased approach to do it, which is how we handle every other reconsideration. Now, the issue I think we've got is the parliamentary issue, which is we're actually reconsidering the first vote on the first reading. And that I think that undoes things and sends us down a new loop. Correct?
That's the logistic that I think is going to be difficult moving forward with that practice, President Blessum, is that the motion that you're reconsidering is, I move to approve the budget on first reading.
Right.
And so then that's
As
the
amended,
motion,
in
as
many
amended.
cases,
So
yes.
that's the motion that's going to come before you, is it's on first reading. You'd have to move to amend it. So then it'd be contemplating, it would be moving to amend the motion on first reading. That motion would come before you anew. You would vote it down if you wanted to amend something. You'd make whatever your proposed amendments were. Then you'd remove to pass it on first reading. But you'd be at what is then the second reading. So then, are you then extending it 2 more readings? Or are you going to try to make it retroactive? And I've never seen that happen in practice.
Yeah. Any additional? Go ahead, Paul.
Again, the one that comes to my mind from my first time, when I was first on council, I don't know if it was in my first year or two on council, I think it was an alcohol ordinance, and maybe some staff will remember this. It's an alcohol ordinance, and in between the first and second reading, we had changed the local ordinance for bar close, which I believe was 1 o'clock at the time. Second meeting, I believe, was Alderman Wolski provided an amendment at second reading to allow to be aligned with state law. To me, like I said, I don't see an issue with that necessarily. You get feedback between first and second reading. Hey, we as business owners would like to have that flexibility. You don't have to stay open till 2, but you can be, and it falls in line with state law. So again, I know that's a little bit different from what we're talking about, but it's part of the bigger conversation, because then does that reset the clock? When Alderman Wolski made that motion, does that reset the clock to reconsider? And now we're back to first reading, but we're having 2 readings of the same ordinance because it's a different ordinance at that point. Do you reset the clock and burden the process and push it back another meeting? You essentially have 3 readings of the item. I don't know, just more context for whatnot. And to Alderman Fuller's point, when we had a disagreement on one of the alcohol items on supper clubs and whatnot. The reason I had made that motion because I felt like we were within first and second reading of an ordinance. So I felt like that was fair game and not necessarily a reconsideration. I felt we were basically having a working group up here at the time working through an ordinance, and that's the difficult time, right? We're kind of making things up on the fly when we're going between first and second reading of the ordinance, because we make a reading, we approve it, we get additional information or additional feedback, whether it be from staff or from the public, and then we you know, we make some changes that we see, you know, as beneficial. So again, I see the concern. I just don't know if there's a good solution to it outside of what we have in place. You know, and allowing there to be changes between first and second reading as we you know, collect additional information and additional feedback.
And to be clear with that one too, I think, because I don't think we've had a first reading on the alcohol ordinance yet. Is that correct?
We've had a first
We
reading
did
on the
have the
alcohol.
first one.
Yep,
Okay,
so
okay.
we have a second reading.
That's why I felt comfortable making that motion, because I
Right.
felt like we were technically working in a working group
Right.
at the dais.
And that and the because to me there's other you know, other examples. You know, last year during the budget process when we were meeting down here, we had instances. I think that's where we made the decision to say, hey, let's pull back to 10 million on the streets. Like, there were decisions that were made, and that's not even a reading. I mean, we were 4 months before the reading, a couple months for sure. And so there we're giving direction to staff, which eventually becomes a part of the ordinance. So I don't know. I guess there's a bunch to this. I think what we've got to figure out, and I guess, Steph, if there's something that comes to mind for you, and I'll continue to do the same, I'd invite all my colleagues to do the same. I think we all understand what we want to avoid to a certain extent, because I think we can all imagine times when we'll be on one side or the other of wanting or not wanting this to happen, right? What we need is to set up our future selves and future councils for a level playing field, because the main thing we're trying to do is make sure it's orderly. Make sure that's what Robert's rules and our rules of order are about, is providing an orderly way to move through decision making. And I think we're all committed to that. So, you know, right now I'm not hearing a motion on this, but under current rules, this is current rules, we could do that under second reading. Okay. All right. Any additional discussion on the first reading of the rules?
And I think President Blessum, if I may, is there a motion to approve option 3B? I thought I had written down a first and a second.
That's the main.
Okay.
That's the main motion.
Okay,
Yeah, he-
So he was contemplating an amendment.
okay. And the
Okay.
amendment's been since withdrawn?
Yeah, he never quite got to saying it. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and we had the mayor's amendment, which was also withdrawn. So right now, we're on the main motion, which is as written with option B for the mayor's handling.
Yes.
Any additional discussion? Okay,
Want me to read it out loud?
yeah,
or
go ahead.
are we-
The whole thing, no.
No, not the whole ordinance. Approve the ordinance on first reading, including option B, which is language recommending a course of action allowing the presiding officer to make a motion if the presiding officer relinquishes the chair.
Okay. Okay, all good? All right, let's vote on the first reading. Okay, Steph, everybody else, thanks for
The
hard
motion
work.
passed unanimously.
We appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Item 7.7, a request by CXL LLC for a facade improvement program, forgivable loan of up to $148,500 for improvements proposed at 302 East Central Avenue.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Scott?
Thank you, Mr. President. And Brian, I don't know if you can answer this question for me on this particular one. Under the rules, it talks about a written verification by a roofing contractor, licensed architect, or licensed engineer on the estimate of the roof. I didn't see anything in our packet that talks about that.
Mr. President, Alderman Samuelson, they did submit that roofing inspection, and it is, if it's not in the packet, it's definitely in the file, and I can forward it to you tomorrow morning if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Brian, I'm sorry, before you go, just one other question. You know, we're certainly seeing a couple of these come through now that I think we've sort of set a set of end dates with this.
Yes.
How do you see the funds looking, and how do you see the funnel looking for these projects?
President Blessum, it's my understanding we have one application in-house right now that's pending. And I'm aware of at least 2 applications that will probably be submitted before the deadline. And I'll be working with the finance department on funding needs and whether or not a budget amendment would be needed for those applications.
Okay. So where we sit today, we didn't have these budgeted, so we have a budget amendment on this one already. We do, however, have the funds that were left in the Economic Development Fund unallocated. I'm looking at Dave if there's anything he wants to add, but we left money unallocated. And so as far as I can think of right now, we're working under that, right? We're not digging into other funds or going anywhere else other than what was originally intended.
That is my understanding.
All right, any further discussion, council? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
The motion passed 6-1 with dissent from Alderman Samuelson.
Okay, moving on to item 8, which is personal appearances. I'm going to go through our guidelines for public comment. Using Robert's Rules of Order as our guide, everyone should remember that public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to inform the governing body of their views. The meeting in which public comments are allowed still is run by the governing body with clear, concise guidelines in place. The chair will determine if the comments are outside the purview of this meeting. Unless otherwise specified, public comment, excuse me, public comment is considered a one-way communication. It's not intended to serve as a debate or question and answer period. For tonight's meeting, public comment from any one person is limited to 5 minutes. A stopwatch will be viewable on the screens. If the governing body wishes to extend the time of a speaker, an affirmative vote must be taken. A speaker's time may not be yielded to another. The unused time from a speaker is transferred back to the governing body. Comments should be related to a topic that falls under the authority of this governing body. Campaigning for any public office or any political office or specific candidate is not acceptable. Comments with the same sentiment or belief should be kept concise to allow for the meeting to move forward efficiently.
So this was right.
Okay, our first speaker is Jane McMahon. And Ms. McMahon, there's some info. Is that meant for the council's view? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Janser and members of the council. My name's Jane McMahon. Tonight, this body issues a proclamation for Provider Appreciation Day. Celebrating childcare is a lifeline for our families. While I support high-quality care, I am here to discuss what happens when that lifeline is severed by administrative corruption and a total lack of oversight. I am here to address the facility at 812 8th Street Northwest, a business currently operating on a temporary occupancy permit. This facility was reportedly nearly shut down by the city recently due to a total failure to communicate regarding that permit. Yet despite this pattern of noncompliance and administrative silence, they remain open while the official records of their safety violations are being scrubbed and backdated in real time. This is not a licensing technicality. It is a story of physical trauma. My son was bitten 11 times at this facility. The 12th bite resulted in the tip of his finger being bitten off, requiring stitches. During the aftermath, the owner of the facility ripped my son's fingernail off. Despite these 12 incidents, only 4 were ever documented by the facility. To this day, no one can tell me how any of this happened. When a local business fails to document nearly 70% of the injuries occurring under its roof, and when children are losing parts of their fingers, this stops being just a licensing issue and becomes a matter of public safety that the city can no longer ignore. The owner of this facility has deep ties to our community and has been able to leverage those relationships to talk his way out of issues that would shut any other business down. Whether it is the recurring failures to communicate with the city regarding occupancy or the documented safety violations, there seems to be a different set of rules for those with the right connections. Where is the accountability when personal relationships override public safety? When a business owner can use his standing to bypass regulations designed to protect our most vulnerable citizens, then the entire system of local government is compromised. I recently watched the City Child Care Committee meeting online and was stunned to hear my son's tragedy discussed, only to be immediately dismissed. I sat in my living room and listened as this committee stated that they would not comment on the specific incident because licensing is not their department. Even more disturbing was the insinuation that proper procedure for reporting had not been followed, an attempt to shift the blame onto a family that has done everything by the book. Let the record be clear. The proper procedure was followed to the letter. We met with the owner multiple times before my son was hurt. We filed formal reports with the state multiple times. While we were following the rules, the officials tasked with enforcing them, including licensing specialist Amy Jenkins, who holds a seat on that very committee, were presiding over the manipulation of the records I am handing you today. If this isn't the committee's department, then why does a state licensing specialist sit on that table? And if safety isn't the city's concern, why does this facility rely on a temporary occupancy permit from the city of Minot to keep its doors open while they ignore background check laws? You cannot claim a lack of jurisdiction while you are the ones granting the permits that allow this negligence to continue. I finally received a written response from the state supervisor, Jasmine Schmidt, just today. Her response is exactly why I'm standing here. She stated that she cannot comment on ongoing investigations and directed me to the public records. The very same records I have just shown you are being backdated and scrubbed of non-compliant staff names. When the state's answer to documented record tampering is to tell the parents to submit an opens record request for documents that they are actively altering, the system is no longer protecting its children, it is protecting itself. This council cannot wait for a process that is being manipulated behind the scenes. With me today, I have before and after snapshots. That's what I presented you. The immediate correction order regarding the biting instance was originally dated March 25th, but that has now been changed to March 23rd. State law requires parent notification within 3 business days. I have the digital receipt showing notice wasn't sent until March 27th. By backdating this document to the 23rd, the state has proven the facility was out of legal compliance, even though they were. But now the records show that that is not the case. In the original staff records worksheet from their inspection, staff members were listed as present with 0 background checks or trainings on file. In the updated version, those names were simply deleted or the trainings were added after the fact. You cannot delete people who were physically present just because their paperwork was missing. Today, I asked the mayor to formally request an audit to the state auditor and the attorney general into the audit trail of these digital files. The ones presented to the public are not accurate, or the originals. I asked the council to remove Amy Jenkins from the City Child Care Committee immediately due to the documented conflict of interest and the manipulation of public safety data records. I asked the city to immediately review the occupancy status of this facility. If they cannot communicate with the city about their permits and cannot follow state laws for background checks, they should not be entrusted with the lives of our children. Personal ties must never be a shield for negligence. I am asking you to choose the safety of Minot's children over the comfort of its business owners. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Billy Gunderson on ADA requirements.
Mayor, council members, on April 20th, I described a culture of noncompliance. I pointed out while the city celebrates awards for Citizens Alley, owned by Jessica and Ryan Ackerman, it fails the citizens it claims to serve by ignoring ADA occupancy standards. I've addressed this body on ADA requirements since 2023 before the new City Hall opened. I am forced to address you from a side table that was left unplugged at the last meeting, forcing everyone in this chamber and everyone watching on Facebook and YouTube to witness me physically struggle just to participate. It's still unplugged, unable to lower it. These inaccessible podiums are a live demonstration of how this city views my civil rights as a broadcasted nuisance rather than a legal requirement. This is engineered exclusion in real time. The exclusion on Central Avenue is a repeat decision-making last year when I addressed ADA requirements and safety concerns. Ryan Ackerman, administrator for the Surf River Joint Board, claimed it wasn't fiscally responsible to complete the paths on the north side of the river. He chose sidewalk closed signs over civil rights. when he did the same on Burdick Expressway, forcing me to cross a 4-lane highway twice to travel 10 blocks for a safe passing. I addressed this with council. 13 days later, a pedestrian was fatally hit at the very intersection at 3rd Street and Burdick Expressway. This is the route that the Service River Joint Board routed pedestrians from Central Avenue. My safety concerns aren't theoretical. They have a body count. Now on Central Avenue, the same decision makers have removed the sidewalks where elderly and disabled residents live. They have turned a 5-minute trip into a 75-minute route over railroad tracks and a viaduct. When I asked for safety, the superintendent from Park Construction, Trent, didn't provide a route. He called the police to remove the witness. The city claims that safety is paramount, yet there is no coordination to provide it. Last week, the south side of Burdick Expressway was excavated and closed, while the north side was already blocked off. There was no safe route on either side of the major highway. I saw pedestrians choose the street. On April 23rd, the culture of noncompliance became a weaponized badge. Superintendent Trent didn't provide safety. He called the police to remove a witness. Officer Bartlett arrived with 2 squad cars and told me that I was not allowed back. He stated Trent was concerned about my safety. This is engineered exclusion. The officer claimed I was only allowed to visit my friend if they picked me up and brought me in. That's a lie. My friend, an elderly resident on that street, never received a notification that they were barred from having visitors. By failing to provide a compliant, accessible route, you have trapped the elderly and disabled residents on Central Avenue. This isn't a road closure. It's a civil rights violation enforced by a badge. The next day I reported immediate strike hazards, heavy machinery operating with no flaggers and no spotters on that same road. City engineer Lance Mayer admitted it took him 5 business days to respond to me because of meetings and assumed they were aware because of my emails. You removed the witness in minutes, but you left the hazard unrouted and said it was not my responsibility. Because the city deferred me to the Service River Joint Board for records, they placed a $150 paywall for records on the safety logs for the inspection, refusing to provide the name of the inspector and time and date of the inspection, stating that it's not information, that it is information, not a record. They are charging for legal and coordination and a legal surcharge under Title 28 Code of Federal Regulations, Section 35.130, Paragraph F. They also sent a payment instruction at 5:42 p.m. for a building that was closed to meet the end-of-day deadline they set. May I have another minute, please?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. This is undeniable proof of coordination failure of the highest level of city leadership with the Service River Joint Board and Citizens Alley. By stating that Ryan Ackerman, the CEO of the firm managing the flood project, does not need an occupancy permit for a gathering space with a skywalk he designed, supported by his 2 properties, Luke Telema and Lance Mayer, have admitted to creating a legal vacuum specifically for one powerful developer, stating that Citizens Alley is unique, that it does not require an occupancy permit. The skywalk alone requires it to meet ADA requirements before being open to the public. I'm concerned that the city manager, Tom Joyce, claims the Service River Joint Board is a separate entity when the city clerk acts as their debt collector, and the city utilities director, Jason Sorensen, sits on their board. Alderman Fuller once said, "Sue us." That is the current standard of Minot leadership, requiring citizens to sue for basic integrity. I have submitted this evidence to the Attorney General and the State Auditor. I'm requesting, 1, an investigation into why Minot Police are enforcing illegal contractor rules, particularly in the incident 26-10283 with Officer Bartlett on April 23rd.
Ms.
Second,
Gunderson, your extra minute is up.
may I ask for 30 more seconds?
All in favor?
Thank you. Second, the hiring of a third-party contractor for inspectors, as our current leadership has proven they are beautifully linked, only in their negligence. Governor Armstrong was just here on May 1st, celebrating that the project is moving forward and that the city is pivoting to minimize cost. I'm here to ask, is safety the pivot? Is the project inexpensive because spotters, flaggers, and accessible routes are optional expenses? You're choosing progress over safety. If this project is on track, is it only because you're trampling over the civil rights of disabled residents and the safety of the public to get there? Thank you.
That's all the speakers.
That's all I have. Yep.
All right, that ends our personal appearances for tonight. We'll move on to miscellaneous and discussion items. Lisa.
Thank you. So as chair of the Child Care Committee, I do feel it's important to share that this committee, among many other mayor-appointed committees, has no authority. We are an information gathering and information sharing committee, but as a group, we have no authority, particularly over licensing. No one in the city of Minot does have governance over childcare licensing. That is a state responsibility.
Okay. Any other items under miscellaneous and discussion? Seeing one, we'll move on to item 10.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.